That's what's happening. It's the 1st of August, and you know what that means. Sturgis Rally is always the first week, or pushing in the second week of August. So if you're into the rally, you're either on your way or you're already there. Now, some of you guys have asked me or shown some kind of inhibition about going. You got your fears. Today I'm just going to tell you some of my worst horror stories of Sturgis, and it's not all that bad, but I think you know, some of these stories will give you an idea of the very worst that could happen while you're there. As far as being afraid of Sturgis, South Dakota Rally, I don't think there's a whole lot to be fearful about. Although there is a possibility you may run into some kind of issues. I think the worst thing you need to worry about is there's a different type of terrain out there. So if you're riding in the Black Hills, there's going to be a lot more twisty turning roads, and you shouldn't ride beyond your limitations. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people that go out there that ride beyond their limitations, and there's always accidents. Now, you say, oh my gosh, you know, people are killed out there every year. Yeah, but you got to figure into effect the thousands and thousands of motorcycles that are out there. Of course, somebody's going to end up crashing. And of course, there could also be fatalities. That's just the statistics. That's the way it goes almost every year. Not all of those are biker errors. Sometimes there's you know, vehicle traffic involved, but a lot of times somebody's going a little too fast, riding a little beyond their means, and an accident happens. So the biggest thing for me was watching out for some of these yo-yos as well, because some of their riding skills aren't that good, and when you're on the road with novice riders and people that don't have riding skill, they're just there for the rally, that can get kind of spooky. And you can see that it's pretty prevalent when you get out there. Although there's a lot of good riders out there too. As far as the campgrounds go, I don't think you're going to have much problem. Pick a nice campground. Buffalo Chip is a good one. Glencoe is a good one. Once you get your campsite set up, you shouldn't have any trouble. Just guard your stuff like you would any other time. Make sure the bike's locked up, your alarm system's on and everything, if you have that option. And keep an eye on your stuff. You know, don't leave your wallet sitting out on a picnic table, let's put it that way. I don't think you'll have any trouble. The people there are usually pretty friendly. You get to meet some cool people that you may not have had before. And unless you're looking for trouble, I don't think you're going to find it. Now, here's a little story that happened to me. I was camping at a campground that was like a private campground. It wasn't a big one. It was a smaller campground. I believe the name was Wild Bill's, something like that, and it was over by Deadwood. It was kind of a wild camp. I mean, some of the guys were actually shooting guns at pop cans and stuff, which that didn't bother me a whole lot. You'll get that. And being that it was a private campground, that kind of stuff is permissible, I guess, or it was there anyway, private property. The problem I ran into was one night. At that time, I was having some real severe bowel issues, let's put it that way, because I've had a history of bowel disease. But anyway, I had to get up in the middle of the night, and I'm guessing it was sometime closer to 2, 3 in the morning, and go to use the bathroom. I had my tent set up, and I crawled out of the tent. I had my jeans on. I don't remember if I even had a shirt on at the time. I think I just crawled out of bed, pulled my jeans on, and I think I was in my bare feet. and I walked up to the main bathhouse, which wasn't too far away, a couple hundred yards up the gravel road or the dirt road. And it wasn't a real fancy bathhouse, but they had flush toilets there, sinks, and some showers. So I went in there, and I went in, was using one of the stalls and taking care of my personal business when I heard somebody coming into the restroom. And they were very obnoxious, very loud, very booming voice. And I don't remember exactly what he said, but something like, "Who the F is in here?" And he just started going down the line, kicking open the toilet stall doors, one after the other. Well, right away I spoke up and I said, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, I'm just finishing up here." And he said, "Finishing up?" He said, "Son of a, smells like you freaking died in here." And he's laughing and carrying on. And so I, finished up my business and stepped out of the stall. And here was this big burly outlaw with his cut, wearing his cut, and the whole thing, the chains, the bandana, the tattoos, the full sleeves. And he was a big, ugly dude. Well, right behind him was his big, ugly old lady. She was in the men's room also. And he asked me, he said, "What in the F are you doing in here?" And I said, "What's it look like I'm doing in here? I'm taking a dump, okay?" And he says, "Is that your bike?" And I said, "My bike? What bike?" And he said, "Out front, there's a green bike out there. Is that your bike?" And I said, "No." I said, "I am sleeping over here in the tent." I said, "I climbed out of the tent, walked up here to do my business, and now I'm going back to my tent." Well, when I started to go out the door, his old lady, she got up there like this and grabbed onto the sides of the door, just stood there blocking the door. Well, I just cut right under her arm, squeezed by her, and went out the door. And he came out there, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, where the hell are you going? Where are you going?" And I just kept walking, and I didn't say a word. I just kept walking, and I thought, am I going to get shot in the back, stabbed in the back, or what? But that was the end of it. I just went back into the darkness, went back to my tent, and didn't hear anything about it until the next morning. They said there was a green motorcycle that had been parked out in front of the bathhouse that had been stolen. So these characters, whoever they were, and I don't know which club they were in, I'm not going to name any names, but apparently they were behind the thievery that night of that motorcycle. Some bikes do get stolen out there. They really do. If you're careful though, like I said, you keep it locked up, you know where it is, you keep attending on it, you'll be fine. Now there was another incident, and it went back a few years, way back, where strolled into a bar full of angels, and that was cool. I mean, there wasn't much problem there. There was some joking and teasing. I didn't hang out there very long because the whole bar was nothing but angels, and I felt like I didn't fit in there, so out the door I went. You see a lot of outlaws, not outlaws per se, but let's say 1% motorcycle clubs there. All the big names you're going to see there. If you don't bother them, they're not going to bother you. You'll see them on the street, you'll see them at Mount Rushmore, you'll see them at Crazy Horse, you'll see them at Custer State Park. They are there to enjoy the rally just like you, and they're not looking for trouble. If you're looking for trouble, they're going to deal it to you. But, keep to yourself, mind your own business, you'll be fine. Now, I was camped at the Buffalo Chip, and that was pretty fun there. It's like a little city in itself. It's self-contained. Everything's there. You wouldn't even have to leave to go anywhere. Of course, I went out every day to ride. I went to Spearfish Canyon. I went to Deadwood. I did some gambling there in Deadwood. Went to Mount Rushmore. Went to Crazy Horse. Did all those sightseeing things. Rode the Needles Highway, and so I didn't stay in the Buffalo Chip the whole time, but some people do. They got their own store there, they got their own restaurant there, they've got a bar there, they have live stage performances all day long, music and entertainment, different types of shows, magic shows, comedy shows. So there's entertainment there. They have shops that you can buy stuff, vendor tents set up, food that you can get anytime there. So you never even have to leave the Buffalo Chip. Glencoe is similar, and some of the other big camps, you know, can mirror that a little bit. But I just know from staying at the Buffalo Chip what that's like. So there's no reason to be afraid there. But be careful. In the evenings, they always have a big name concert. So it just so happened that Steppenwolf was playing there that night. And you ride your motorcycle. You can ride your motorcycle right up to the concert grounds and park there, which I did. And I had a little styrofoam cooler. I sat down on the ground beside my bike full of ice and beer, so you could sit. And in the Buffalo Chip camp, once you're in the camp, you can drink as much as you want, and you can ride your bike around the camp as much as you want. You can fall over dead drunk. As long as you stay in the camp, you don't want to leave the camp. If you go out of the camp out onto the street and you've been drinking, the cops are all over that. Trust me, they wait for those people to come out of there. I'm sitting at the concert, pre-concert, okay? The concert doesn't start till like 9:30, 10 o'clock or something, Steppenwolf, but prior to that, everybody's just starting to come in and get their place in the concert grounds there, meeting people, hooking up with people, and just mingling, and you see all kinds of crazy stuff. It's just a big party, more or less. And so I'm sitting there on my bike, kind of like I am now, but I was out in the concert ground there, and this lanky gal comes walking up, and she is dressed like she's going to the porn movies. Okay, now I'm not kidding. She had like this lace push-up bra. She was wearing a black lace thong, and I mean, it wasn't hiding very much at all. And then she had black leather chaps on. And she was pretty wild looking, but fairly attractive. And she walked like a loop around my bike, and she says, "I really like your motorcycle." And I said, "Why, thank you." And she kind of took another half spin and turned. She goes, "I think I like what's sitting on the bike too." Well, right away I was kind of like shocked. I thought, "Oh my gosh, you know, that I don't usually get compliments from women." And I was kind of taken back for a minute, and she said, well, she actually propositioned me at that point just that quick, and wanted to know if I wanted to get some oral. And you know, right away, without even thinking, I just turned her down. I said, "No thanks, dear. That's not my thing right here, right now." And without even blinking an eye, she said, "Well, let's go the whole route, and you can do whatever you want with me." And again, I said, "Well, I appreciate the offer, but no." I just felt something wasn't right there. I mean, when somebody comes up and propositions you that quick, there's usually some kind of a scam involved. So you got to be careful. You get scammed really quick. So I turned her down, and she said, "Are you sure? Because I'm only going to offer you one more time." And I said, "No, that's it. I'm done. I'm out." So she walked away. Well, the next morning, I walked back up to the concert ground, and they have a Pizza Hut vendor there, you know. So I went up to the Pizza Hut. In the morning, they serve coffee and donuts at the Pizza Hut vendor. So I went over there, and I got a cup of coffee and a donut, and I went and sat down at a picnic table. And I had been there for about 10, 15 minutes sipping my coffee, and this guy comes walking in. All he's wearing is his blue jeans. He's barefoot, he's got no shirt on, he's wearing a gold chain, and he was kind of a buff dude. And he goes over there and gets a cup of coffee. He comes over and he sits down next to me, and he says, "Oh my gosh," he said, "you wouldn't believe what happened to me last night." And I said, "Well, go ahead, try me." He says, "Well, this lanky gal comes up in black leather chaps, wearing a black lace thong and a black lace push-up bra, and she was smoking hot, and she asked me if I wanted to go back to her tent and you know, do the dirty." And he says, I had a little bit of a buzz going, and I said, sure, I'm going to go. And he went back to her tent with her. Well, here's what happened. He got involved with her in there, and next thing you know, there's a guy in there with a camera, and they're taking videos. And he says the guy was crawling all over, and they're videotaping him and told him that he's going to be in a porn movie. So he was pretty upset about that, because he said, now it's the next morning, and he said, I was pretty drunk when I went in there and did all of that business, and he said, now I'm really regretting it, and I wish there was some way I could go back. But there wasn't. It was already done deal. I don't know if they ever, if the porn movie ever got put out or not, but he was pretty darn worried about it. I did almost get robbed at the concert, because it gets real crowded and people are pushing in real tight, and this gal kept pushing up on me, and she started rubbing on me and stuff, like almost as if she was attracted to me. And just out of instinct, I reached back and just kind of stuck my hand on my wallet, and next thing I know, she's trying to yank my wallet out of my pocket, right out of my hand. And I put up a little scuffle with her, and then she took off running into the crowd. So, beware of that kind of stuff too. Carry your wallet in a place where it's not going to easily be picked out of your pocket. As I remember, there was one situation when we were out shopping at one of the vendors in Sturgis. They have vendors that sell, stores where you go in and they just have t-shirts and jewelry and all kinds of cool stuff to browse around and look at. And I was with V at the time, and she was looking at something in a showcase, and 1% biker came up and shoved her out of the way so he could look at something. And again, I'm not going to point out any particular club, but it was one of the big name clubs. She just pushed him back and went back to looking at what she was looking at. Now, I thought there was going to be an issue at that point, but he didn't do anything. He just kind of turned and walked away and mumbled something vulgar. But she stood her ground, and there was no problem. You can get away with that if you're a woman. I wouldn't try that if you're a guy, though. So that's about it, cats. As far as horror stories, I don't have a lot of other ones to talk about that I experienced personally. I usually had a pretty good time there regardless of what I just told you, because I managed to evade the problems. And it's pretty easy to do. Use your head. Common sense will get you everywhere. Be careful. Don't ride beyond your means. And watch over your stuff, and you'll be fine. That's all I got today, cats. Until next time, ride hard and die free.